I'm Beth and I'm with the Denver Public Library ideaLABs. Today we're going to be learning about how to make your own watercolors out of dried up markers and other common household materials. Whether you like to paint, want to try something new, maybe you're on a tight budget, or you're like me and you're really into the challenge of repurposing and reducing waste, this project is for you. I'm here to help you rethink the materials around your house and dispel the myth that you need the most perfect materials and tools in order to start making. Beauty can come straight out of your junk drawer. In the first lesson, I'll show you how to identify and disassemble water-soluble markers and convert them into watercolors. Then we'll experiment with mixing chalk and water. And finally, we'll talk about beverages. Now everyone works at their own pace. Please feel free to pause the video at any time and work at a pace that works best for you. Now let's get started. For this project, you will need something to protect your workspace as needed. I'm going to use this cutting mat, but cardboard or newspaper would work too. You'll want some water and some small containers for your paints. Keep one container separate for cleaning your brush. Any kind of cup or jar will do, but if you can find one with a lid, it'll help with saving your paints for later. You will also need a rag, some paintbrushes, and some paper. If you don't have any paintbrushes around, you can try using a sponge, a Q-tip, a toothpick, or even a leaf will do. And if you're short on paper around the house, try using paperboard. For the first part of this project, we'll be using dried out water-soluble markers and some pliers. It's also helpful to have a utility knife and some scissors. For the second part of this project, you'll be wanting a palette. I'm using wax paper and this plastic lid, some bits of chalk, and a blunt object to crush the chalk. I'm using the end of this screwdriver. Last but not least, you'll want a cup of coffee and a little bit of wine. To start, I have a handful of dried out water-soluble markers and a couple of containers with a small amount of water. If you aren't sure if your marker is water-soluble, you can do a quick test. Take your marker and test it on a scrap of paper. Go over it with a wet paintbrush. If the color bleeds, your marker is water-soluble. This purple marker is water-soluble. This Sharpie, which is a permanent marker, is not. Now that we've determined which markers are water-soluble, I'm going to choose a couple of markers, remove their filaments, and add them to water. Each marker brand is a little bit different, and I'm going to show you how to remove the filament from a couple of different types. Some can be a little tricky. You may need to pause the video while you remove your filament. With my first marker, the filament is removed by pulling on the back with pliers. As you can see, my purple filament tried flying away from me, but I still have it. You can also utilize the felt tip for the pigment as well. My second marker is a little trickier. I've already removed the felt tip from this marker, but as you can see, it doesn't have anything to pull on, so we're going to have to cut through it or just crack it open. First, I'm going to try to cut through it with my knife, my utility knife. Please remember to cut away from yourself and keep your fingers safe. If the utility knife doesn't work, then I'm going to move on to cracking it open with the pliers. Now we have both of our filaments. Now here's the fun part. We're going to add these filament tubes to water. You can take your filament tube and just drop it in the water. Sometimes it can take a little while, like overnight, for the pigment to bleed out. Or you can take your scissors and cut into small pieces. And don't forget the felt tip. Now I did pause my video for a little bit to see if I could let the pigment bleed out. As you can see, the purple is done great, but the orange is done a little so-so. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up the filament. Let's try out our paints. It can take a while for the paint to dry and the pigments to reveal their true colors. If you like this project, but you don't have old markers lying around, a few drops of watercoloring into a small amount of water will get you painting. Now, if you want to play around with your new marker watercolors, pause here, or you can continue on with me to chalk paints. Next up, we're going to crush up some chalk and mix it with a tiny bit of water. You can use any bits of chalk. Today I'm using soft pastels and white chalk. I'm going to use the tip of my screwdriver to break off the chalk and the end of it to crush it up. Next, we're going to add a tiny bit of water. You'll want more of a paste and nothing too watery. If you're using white chalk and you want to add some color, don't be afraid to add some of our watercolors we made out of the markers. Ooh, that's a little too much, but we'll see what happens. Let's try them out. I know that my white chalk that I added the watercolors to isn't going to turn out very well because I added too much water, but we're going to try it out anyway. The green had the most paste-like consistency, so I think that's going to be our winner today. Our final experiment requires no prep whatsoever outside of pouring your red wine and black coffee into separate, non-beverage containers. Try not to confuse what you are sipping with what you're painting with. For this example, I decided to take my repurposing a step further and paint on the back of old coffee filters. Once dry, both the coffee and wine offer a nice earthy pigment. Painting with coffee or wine can be fun to do with friends, whether in person or maybe over a virtual coffee hour or sip and paint. Thanks for making with me today and for being interested in learning about how to make your own watercolors. I hope that you can take some of these skills and experiment with even more ways to make your own watercolors and start tinkering with repurposing materials around your own home. If you want to take things a step further and learn more about creating your own watercolors, paints, dyes, and other ways to repurpose materials, check out the resources that I have linked in the description below, including information on how to join our live discussion on DIY watercolors. For more ideas of things to make at home, check out denverlibrary.org/ideaLAB, where you will find the instructions for the DIY watercolors and more projects to try. If you want to show off what you've made, tag us on social media with ideaLAB Makes.